So I just want to say good morning. Thank you all for coming bright and early. I know this is the first dive-in event in the UK today. I was hoping to be able to say it was the first in Europe, but I think the French beat us to it by 30 minutes. But I guess we allow for the time difference. We're probably still ahead. Clearly, for WTW, inclusion and diversity is really important. It's a really important part of my role when I work closely with Jen and other people on our inclusion and diversity team. So I'm really pleased that we're so heavily involved in supporting and sponsoring Dive-In. And it's good that the Dive-In Festival is looking at all aspects of diversity, and I think this is going to be a very interesting take on inclusion and diversity. And I love the title of experienced workforce. As somebody who's about to enter my 40th year at WTW, I'm definitely going to call myself experienced. I think rather than the other adjectives my colleagues might call me. So I think experienced is great. And I think just personally, I think a lot of people like me, I think it's really important to keep learning and to keep being involved in innovation, not just for our companies to add value, but personally. I mean, personally, I feel that the day I start wanting to learn is the day I should go off and do something else, and hopefully that day is a long time off. So I'm really looking forward to this session, Caroline, and I'll hand over to you.
It's really amazing to see you here today. It's amazing to see such a different level of experience in the room. We're going to have a panel session in a moment where we're going to talk about the perception of innovation, the perception of whose responsibility it is, who should be championed to drive this change, and what the obstacles are in those individuals' way. I'm Chief Executive of EDII. EDII stands for Educate, Develop, Innovate and Inspire, and we specialise in teaching experienced insurance individuals to be more innovative, future focused. So we were also going to give you a little taster of some of the tools and techniques. Welcome Liz Lister. Liz is the Head of Strategy and Chief of Staff here at Willis Towers Watson, WTW. In the centre there we have Katherine Bryant. Katherine is the Chief Executive of the Progress Partnership, an organisation that focuses on helping develop teams and future leaders in the industry. And last but not least, we have got Nick Lyne. Nick is, I was going to say former actuary, but you never stop being an actuary, do you? Never stop being an actuary. Previously Chief Actuary for Markel International and now also Chief Underwriting Officer. So Nick, what's your view of what innovation actually is? What does it mean?
Well, to me, it's basically anything new. I go back to where words come from. It comes from the Latin word for new. So anything that's new is innovative. I don't think it's something that we should be scared of or make it in some sort of big, scary thing that we want to worry about. Anything new is innovative. We prefer things that are innovative and make our lives better. Some innovations don't make our lives better, clearly, but anything that makes a process better for the customer, a better product, I think of as innovative, big or small.
Liz, do you agree with Nick?
I would absolutely agree, and I think for me, it's all about how we better serve our clients. So about horizon scanning and looking to identify the changes that could be happening in the future. So looking in a crystal ball, really, trying to preempt what those may be. And then thinking about new products, new solutions that could help our clients be fit for the future. And in turn, it then makes our company fit for the future because we remain relevant and we can help them build their resilience, which creates more value for our clients, which creates a competitive advantage. And on a personal level, it's really fun. I mean, it's the thing that gets me up in the morning. It's the bit of my job that I absolutely enjoy the most, and it gives me fire in the belly on a grey Monday morning. So yeah, I love innovation.
You're so right, aren't you? Business as usual is our bread and butter, but it's driving these new changes that makes us energised and enjoy our work. Excuse me, Katherine, I know you enjoy your work.
Sure do.
And I know you have a slightly different perspective on the word innovation.
Well, I might start a campaign to eliminate the word innovation, only because I dislike labels, and I think often what happens, particularly with innovation in my experience of working with teams, is if you go to someone, and I could do a little straw poll here, although you're a very special subset because you're clearly interested in innovation, you're here today, but most people I ask, if you said to them, do you consider yourself to be an experienced innovator, would kind of hesitate to put their hand up. They think, well, gosh, that means I need to invent the iPhone or come up with some brand new strategy or invention. And most of us feel that's a bit intimidating. And actually, I think as you mentioned, Nick, I don't think it's like that. It could be anything. So a better question is, has anyone here ever changed something? Have you ever found a better way of doing something? Have you ever eliminated a bit of a process and gone, oh, that's quicker? That's innovation. And we don't need that big label, that scary word. And I think it can put people off. So I think anything that's changing, don't focus on the label, focus on the excitement, the fun, the change. That's my view on it. So don't worry about the word.
So we've definitely got a common view here that innovation is definitely engaging, definitely fun. So not sure what we're going to call it, but we know what it makes us feel. We'll stick with it for now. So thank you very much. Now we're looking at, Nick, you're coming from Markel, so you're coming from a carrier perspective. Liz, you're WTW, so you're coming from a broker perspective. And you've talked about clients, and of course, depending on where we are in the insurance value chain, our client could be somebody completely different, can play a different role. But I think we're all agreed that the industry is facing challenges that we need to be able to make changes towards. Nick, from a carrier perspective, what are you seeing? What's Markel looking at? Why does Markel need to be innovative?
Well, I think all companies need to innovate. Like we've said, all industries need to innovate. You know, we talk about Blockbuster, Kodak, BlackBerry's been in the news this week, and thinking back to their lack of innovation was a key moment. I think for the insurance industry, we have always innovated. I know we think about the insurance industry as being a bit stuck in the past because of all the paper we have lying around, or we used to before COVID. But we have innovated our products, and we need to keep doing that. And think about the last few weeks and months. Risks are changing very quickly. Society is changing, the economy is changing, and we have to keep up with that. And we have more and more clients and people out in the world who need their assets protecting, their businesses protecting. But there's so much more opportunity as well. So we've got a lot more data coming. So I'm an actuary, I get excited about more data, which means we can design better products, we can get better pricing for them, we can deliver them potentially cheaper. With better pricing, we can maybe flatten this ridiculous insurance cycle that we have over time. And one thing I find quite interesting about the way some products are moving is, and this is where I think insurance may well go generally, is providing risk advice and services the way cyber does already. So with more and more data, we can actually give our clients advice about how not to have a claim. No one likes to have a claim. And if we can give better advice and the insurance policy is the backup to that, that could be the way things are going. So there's plenty for us to do as an industry.
There is, and that's exciting. As somebody who wants to stay around for a long time, I'm glad that there's still plenty for us to do. Excuse me. Liz, from a broker perspective, what's your view?
I think it comes back to that point of the fact that we need to help our clients with the horizon scanning. We need to support them with the changes that are out there and make sure that they're resilient. And I really like the fact that you mentioned Blockbuster. And in the year 2000, there was a guy called Reed Hastings who went to meet the board of Blockbuster, this video rental company, to suggest a partnership. And at that time, Blockbuster were really flying high, and they pretty much laughed him out of the room. They said, we don't need you. And when they were flying high, then I think it was about 6 billion turnover. They had 9,000 stores, about 50,000 members. And then only 6 years later, they filed bankruptcy. And Reed Hastings was the founder of Netflix. So clearly, I think there were two things, well, there are probably many things that they did wrong, but I think there were two really clear things. They didn't recognize the risk of that shift. You know, they didn't recognize the risk of the changes around them, the shifting landscape, and they didn't recognize the opportunity. So I think innovation is about responding to risk and opportunity, and we need to do that for our clients.
What do you think they didn't recognise that risk, Liz? I know there's, like you said, there's a lot of different things. What emotional response do you think could have been?
I think they thought they were doing well.
Yeah.
You know, I think they were probably quite chuffed with themselves. You know, they had a really strong balance sheet and everything was great. So you need to constantly be second guessing what might be around the corner. And just because you're on an upward trajectory today does not mean that it's going to remain that way.
No, you're absolutely right. And in EDII, we have an exercise that features on the if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality. It's often said that in the insurance industry it could be a laggard, that we should look to what other industries are doing to be able to focus on, give us some insight and give us some steer as to the area we should be looking at. Nick, what do you think about that?
Well, I think all industries need to look at other industries all the time for creativity, ideas, things to steal. I'm going to tell you a story that came to me while I was thinking about this. So I was at an Institute of Actuaries conference a few years ago, and the keynote speaker was a chap called Martin Elliott. He is the UK's leading paediatric cardiac surgeon. So if you think about those words for a minute, he deals with hearts that are about this big, amazing guy. So he does a lot of operations over at Great Ormond Street, and he was getting quite annoyed because his success rate was not improving. He looked at his data over years, and he had the same level of success and got quite annoyed. So he went out of the medical industry and he went to the aviation industry because he was aware that aviation safety had improved so much over the years. He went to British Airways, I guess, given who he is. He got in there quite easily and got into do some flights. He flew around the world with British Airways, took some notes, and then he went to the Formula One industry. Again, quite a good safety record generally, given what they do, and again, took some notes, talked to some people, watched how they'd improved pit stop times in particular, and he learned a lot about teamwork. And he also actually, I think it was with McLaren, he used some of the data he had, some of their AI tools, and learnt about some things that were predictive of bad outcomes in what he was doing. One of the things he found was that the time between finishing an operation and getting a child hooked up into intensive care was really important. So what he did was he drilled his teams better and better and better at doing this, and he had a massively improved outcome. I think it's a brilliant story. My favourite thing is, I don't know when he did this, it's probably in the last 10 years, he is now 71.
Thank you so much. So what I'm going to start looking at now is the topic that we're here today to discuss, is that innovation is often thought about as being the bastion of the newcomers, people coming in from different industries to bring different perspectives. That's not always the case. So, Katherine, what's your perspective on that?
The organisations that I work with, they don't tend to pitch their innovation projects or schemes at youngsters or newcomers to the industry, but it's often those people that tend to put their hand up for them, or who get sort of tapped on the shoulder and told, oh, this would be a good opportunity for you. And I think it's a real shame, and I think sometimes it comes back to that language piece. If we frame it as we're solving a problem for a client, or we are looking at a way of innovating to solve a particular issue or to take advantage of an opportunity, I think we'd get different people involved. I think different people would step up, and I think we need to make sure that we get that experience in the room, because it's absolutely critical. And I know, Liz, you've managed to do it at WCW, haven't you? You've had success.
I mean, I'm with you. I think it's really important that we don't just wait for people to raise their hand, because I think if you're not careful, you end up with the same people in the same rooms, having the same conversations, and you can end up with groupthink, you know, where people are like, oh yeah, that's great. And that's not what you want to drive innovation. You actually want challenge. And I think often, particularly as managers and as leaders, maybe we shy away from that because that can be quite difficult to manage. So you need really strong facilitators because you need to create that challenge so that people can really think outside the box. So by doing that, then I think that you can bring in more people. And also, when I've been working on, I've been leading the project for Climate Transition Pathways, which is an accreditation framework for the industry that looks at accrediting climate transition plans to help with the climate crisis. And that piece of work, it was a very knotty problem, as you can imagine. And we had to have real diversity of thinking when we were thinking about the solution, because it wasn't apparent what the solution could be. And actually some people said we couldn't create a solution, which was interesting in itself. So we had some people put their hands up to say they would like to be involved, which is great. You want people who are not coming kicking and screaming. But we also went out and chose people to say, and said, look, we think you would be great at this. And that meant that we could ensure that we had that diversity when we were building the solution.
And when you did select people and encouraged them, what barriers did they put up? Were they instantly approachable and happy, or did you have to persuade?
I would say that in the main, most people wanted to do it. And I think that's probably because it's such an interesting topic that affects us all. So it isn't just something that affects our clients, but it affects us and our families, you know, our kids. So I actually think I was pushing on an open door from that perspective. And people saw that it could be interesting and fun. And actually, it was incredibly fun. And I think they also saw the benefit on a personal level to do with networking. It opened up their networking world across WTW and actually beyond, because we're working with insurers and other brokers now to look at the solutions. So I would say I was quite lucky that I had an easy topic, but I think it's really important that we give people time. And I think maybe that is the big barrier for people. People are busy, we're all busy. So I think it's making sure that as organisations we allow time for our colleagues to innovate.
Nick, Markel, so we're talking about, is it the bastion of the youngsters? Should we put in a ceiling? What's your experience?
No, I think there's a huge risk if you just innovate with youngsters. You'll end up with products and services that only suit youngsters. Now, I did get given a very unhelpful counterexample the other day, talking about this. Somebody, apparently there's a car called the Lamborghini Miura. The entire team that built that car were all under the age of 27. Whether that car is nice to drive for older people, I don't know. But another story I was given at the same event was a very senior colleague was telling me that he was sent a new credit card by his bank recently. And this credit card had a really funky, colourful picture on it that he didn't like. So he rang the bank and said, I hate this credit card, not very businesslike, I want my old black one back. And they said, well, sir, I'm sorry that this credit card picture won our Instagram voting competition. And he said, thank you very much, I'll be changing my bank. So a little example there. So what you don't want in your team is some old person, like I might be in 20 years' time, sitting in the corner saying, no, you can't do that, it didn't work when we tried it before, don't do that, don't do this. But you want somebody with some corporate memory, somebody who knows what's worked and what hasn't and can challenge what's being done. And let's not forget, we're here in Diving Week, we're here talking about diversity generally. We're talking about not just fairness and equity of allowing people to come into this industry, but also the power of diverse teams. And you guys all know this. So we're not talking about age, we're talking about gender, ethnicity, and everything else. And if you don't have those diverse teams, you don't have the challenge that you've talked about, and you end up producing products and services that aren't really suitable for everybody. And this is really where, say, the FCA are going with their papers on diversity in financial services, and even the PRA have said non-diverse teams are a prudential risk. So lots of risk involved if we don't involve everybody.
So we talked about time, and often we see one of the blockers with people being involved in innovation is their business as usual activities are so intense and their workload is so high that giving somebody an opportunity often can feel a little bit like a punishment rather than an opportunity. So what are those blockers, Katherine, and have you got any tips on how we can overcome them?
I think it's a tricky one. Time is definitely an issue. I think, again, if we start to think about innovation not necessarily as something totally outside our business as usual, but as part of it, as improving it, we can start to make the time. As an example from my past, as my background is broking and underwriting, many years ago I was at Marsh back in 2001, which seems like only yesterday, and I noticed that as we were getting all the slips through, I was on the placement side for energy, we were getting different rates for the same kind of technology from different insurers. And I was thinking, this isn't right, we're not doing our clients a great service here because we're getting these different rates. So, and every time we need to get benchmarking data, we're going to have to go back to the system. It takes ages to get all this information. So this is in the days, when data wasn't as sexy as it is now, Nick. I don't know if you remember those days. And so I just put a little bit of time aside. At the end of each day, I would log in a very simple spreadsheet who the rates were and which insurers, which underwriters they were coming from. And I started to get a pattern, and I put it together, and a spreadsheet became a database. And I took it to my managing director and said, look, I've recognised this pattern. I think we could do this better. It'll be more efficient for us. It'll be better for our clients. And he just took one look at it and said, what do you need? What do you need for us to do this? And we ended up creating a database that was rolled out across all our broking centres. But it was just a little add-on to my day. Yeah. So I think sometimes it's about starting small. Don't try and reinvent the wheel for the sake of it. Think about what could I change, and that gives you momentum, and it's great fun, and you get recognition, and you get involved with other things, and it leads on to great things. So I think, it's not easy, but start small, prove the case, and then your management often will then come to you and say, what do you need to make this happen, and give you that time.
And it's so rewarding, as you say. So Nick, what practical steps has Markel taken?
Well, I think one thing I've seen in the last couple of years at Markel is a lot more innovation going on. I can't remember a time when I wasn't changing something, frankly. Maybe 20 years ago, things were the same one year after the next. But right now, things are changing all the time. And one thing we did a couple of years ago, we launched a massive new strategy, a big growth, profit strategy, a lot of ambition through the organisation. A lot of communication happened as well. And I've never seen anything like it at all. And I think that really lit a spark amongst the whole organisation where people are thinking, goodness me, how am I going to deliver this target with this profit, with this expense or whatever? What we also did was I think we were much more open to people having new ideas and how to change things. So we got some people in from outside to just plant a few seeds of things that we can do, tools that are available. Where we had small successes, we shared them around the organisation. So, well, this has worked in Canada, can we try it in London or over here in Asia? And I think slowly people started to realise that they could challenge what we did. They could have a better way of doing things, and we did have the tools. And then I guess the third thing was we had plenty of opportunities to do things better. So I think what really lit the spark though, and I think whenever you're innovating, you need to know what that goal is, what that strategy is we lit that spark by saying to people, we need to do a lot more. And what can we do? And you created that sense of excitement. That was really important.
So as leaders and as people who help people make time wherever they sit in your organisations, what's the one piece of advice if somebody is sitting in this room today thinking, I'd love to be more future focused, more innovative, I just need to be able to take that leap, that little push to get myself on the radar so that somebody chooses me, or in your case, Liz, asks you. How lovely to be required to have an invitation. So what would your perspective? Liz, do you like to start? Sorry. Go from both sides.
Can I give 2 bits of advice? Sorry.
Yes,
I'm trying to big up my role here.
Innovation is about going with the flow.
So first of all, I would say don't look to others and think it's being done elsewhere. It is down to you as individuals. Every single one of you should be owning innovation. You should be trying to spot it, as you did. I think that was a great example. But also, if you can't spot something, just put your hand up and say, I want to be innovative, and make that known. That was why I got involved in the Climate Transition Pathways project. It was literally a call that I had with Adam Garrard, who leads our broking globally, to say, look, if you've got a knotty problem that comes across your desk, please give it to me, because I'd love to get involved in something exciting. And that's what came of it. So put your hand up. And then just the other piece of advice, I really like the quote, to live a creative life, you need to lose the fear of being wrong. And I think that's really important. Put your hand up to innovate and don't be scared to be wrong. You are not going to be right all the time. And we work in corporate environments where actually that's a bit at odds with what we're being asked to do on a day-to-day basis. We want to be right. We want to do the right things for the clients. We want to be right. But innovation, you've got to allow yourself to be wrong, because by being wrong, you're going to get to the point that's right.
Have you got leadership advice to persuade? I know you're very pro on influencing, Katherine.
I think take it into your own hands. Don't expect others to do it. I think a lot of people see a chief innovation officer employed at their organisation and think, oh, that's their job to have all the ideas. And it doesn't work that way. I think you on the ground are the ones spotting the issues. You can see those details, those nuances that could be improved. And I also do think there's an enormous responsibility on organisations to create psychological safety in an organisation where people feel they can challenge. I think in the past we have had some perhaps not challenging very well, and people seen as criticising and therefore being, don't challenge, this is the way we do it, just get along with it. And of course we know that that's not the way. So I think challenging in a constructive way is really, really important. If you're trying to disrupt the status quo, don't offend the people who created something that's been working for many years, but bring a new perspective and say, I've spotted this and I think it could be even better. And I think organisations need to create the space to allow that challenge and see it as a value add, not as a disruption.
Nick?
So a couple of things. First of all, we have this thing called the Markel style, which is written down. It's about the company's DNA. It mentions challenge management. It mentions finding a better way to do things. So everyone's allowed to do it. It's written down. It's on lumps of plastic around the building. But one thing I would say is get outside your bubble. So one thing I try to do is not just read the insurance press. I try to read other things as well, things like Wired magazine and other things that tell you what's going on in other industries, like my friend Martin Elliott. Go and see what's happening elsewhere, because that's how you get ideas. The one place you do not ever have creative ideas is sat at your desk, to be honest. All the best ideas I've had, ones I have been on the pavement outside the office, on the tube platform on the way home, or playing cricket or doing something else. So just get out of your bubble and just learn what's going on outside the industry.
Thank you very much indeed, panel. Thank you for sharing your insights on it. And I know you're champions of innovation. You're champions of innovation across all levels, and particularly champions of making sure that the experience that the workforce has continues to get supplemented, so we can keep those talented people in our industry and we don't let them go anywhere. So thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.